Hey guys, Brunel here with Agronomy. It's May 11th. We're standing in a field, about 20 degrees outside right now. We've been receiving a lot of questions this spring from growers wondering what's all of this weather going to do for our residual nitrogen levels. So there's a number of different factors that are coming into play that are going to cause a lot of variability in the nitrogen levels in the soil, or what we believe will cause a lot of variability. For starters, we have high nitrogen levels, or residual nitrogen levels, after last year's drought. So last year's drought, we lowered our yields. There was a lot of leftover nitrogen. A lot of fields were coming back 50 to 100 pounds of N, if not more. When we start seeing those high levels of residual, there's a lot more variability in the fields. Now, if you think of last year, a lot of the crop that we did harvest came out of the low spots that hold more moisture, and the ridges that shed water had next to no crops. So we're probably got a scenario where there's higher nitrogen on the ridges than there would be in the depressional areas. Now, when looking at that in terms of the weather this spring, we had an early melt in March. We had above average snowfall, so there was lots of water laying around with nowhere to go until the ditches opened up. So when we got a lot of water sitting on the fields, we're at a high risk of denitrification. So denitrification, for those that you don't know, is when the soil microbes start stripping oxygen molecules off of the nitrate. And then we're left with N2O or N2 gas, which is highly susceptible to loss because it gases off into the atmosphere. So this spring, with all this water sitting on the fields for an extended period of time, is really putting us at risk. So we had a very early snowmelt in March, but then we had a abnormally cool and abnormally wet April, which only compounded the problem. So we've got a lot of fields that have been sitting wet for a long time. And where's that water sitting? In those same low spots that were probably low nitrogen last year. So the good news is that there's a bunch of different strategies that we can take to assess where that nitrogen is. So number one, we can do spring sampling to compare against the fall to see what kind of losses we had. If we're looking to figure out where that nitrogen is on the field, zone sampling approach is probably a better one. So zone management zones based on topography, isolating the high ground versus the low ground, depressional areas might give us a better read on where that nitrogen is. We've also got in-season tissue and soil sampling where we can compare different areas of the field, good areas to bad. We've got in corn, we can use a pre-side dress nitrogen test, which has been calibrated to tell us, given our 0 to 12 inch sample, how much nitrogen is in the soil at that 6 to 12 leaf stage. We can use that number to figure out, okay, are we going to be short to try to carry that crop through to maturity, or do we have ample nitrogen left over? And the last thing, or the last category that we also have a tool in our toolbox this year, is there are now biologicals on the market that help the crop fix atmospheric nitrogen. So they've only been on the market a couple of years. We have a lot to learn about these products as far as their performance, but I think they warrant consideration if we can use it to top off whatever shortcomings in nitrogen we might have, or just to try and even things out a bit to give that crop an extra chance to get that extra nitrogen. This might be a scenario where those kinds of products are meant to be. So if you'd like to learn more, you can follow the link below, download the paper that we made with more background information on why we're seeing this scenario, as well as what we could potentially do to fix it. It's one of those years with the high price of fertilizer and commodities that growers are really going to they don't want to miss. So we want to avoid any kind of costly mistakes, and we want to make sure that we maximize yields at the same time, because there's a real opportunity here. So it's important that we get a good read on where that nitrogen is, how much we have, how much the crop needs. Yeah, we're planting late, we're going to need less of it, but because there's such a high potential for loss here, I think it's something that we still need to pay very close attention to. So as I mentioned, download the paper that we've prepared. If you want to learn more about how we can help you, subscribe to this channel, visit our website, sign up for our newsletter, follow us on social media where we share timely agronomic tips throughout the summer. So thanks again. Until next time.